Thank you. Good morning. The March 9, 2023 meeting of the Alabama State Board of Education will come to order. Pastor Corey Williams, youth pastor of First Assembly of God located in Montgomery here, will offer the invocation. Thank you, Pastor Williams.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Hey, before we begin, man, I really wanted to honestly bring my 2-year-old with me this morning, just to spend some daddy time with her. And honestly, I wanted her to be in this moment, you know, as leaders of our state gather and continue to try to sustain a future for our students. I wanted her to remember that one day, you know, hopes that her future when it's here, she'll say, man, I remember Daddy took me there. But we went to Gammy and Poppy's house this morning for breakfast, and she did not want to go. I thought I could persuade her with everything. I brought our Nintendo Switch because I thought I was going to be able to say, hey, baby, let's play some Mario Kart while we sit and watch Daddy pray. But that didn't work. So, and what I mean by that is, you know, remembering the influence that we as adults, you know, have in our students and young people. And as we just gather today to create and sustain, you know, the future we have for the students in Alabama, let's just remember why we do what we do, you know. It's a great opportunity, but man, their future's at stake, lives at stake, and of course the next generation. So let's just pray. Pray with me. God, thank you for today. Thank you for, man, Lord, we just take this for granted so many times. And so many students may have taken it for granted, and maybe they're no longer with us today. And so God, today I just pray for leadership that's gathered here today, that's dreaming, that's deciding, maybe voting, as we have in mind, God, a common goal, better schools, better futures for the state of Alabama. God, I pray for wisdom today. I pray for direction. I just pray for peace over their minds, over their hearts, as we decide and as we remember those who have gone before us. But even now we're thinking about those who are coming behind us. Lord, I pray for families that are represented here today. Lord, families that may be struggling, families that may have a smile this morning, but God, deep down, they're hurting, they're burdened. And God, maybe even in this moment, Lord, it brings a bit of life because we're surrounded by people who are fighting with us. We're in that common goal. We have that common goal. And Lord, I just pray for peace for families today, families that are hurting. And God, I pray for, most importantly, our students. Lord, that's the only reason we're here. This does not exist without students. Lord, I pray for our hearts as we remember students. Lord, maybe there are teachers represented here. Maybe there are principals represented here. And Lord, I pray that even now you would quicken our hearts and reveal to us maybe students that have touched our hearts throughout our time serving. And help us to remember, Lord, we're getting to invest in the future of Alabama. Lord, we're getting to invest in the families of Alabama. We're getting to invest in the next generation. Lord, what an opportunity to say our mark could be a part of their story forever. So God, today I just pray for direction, pray for accountability. I pray for favor. Your word says we have not because we ask not. And so, Lord, we're going to ask today. We're going to ask for favor for the state of Alabama, God, that your will would be done. And God, that you would just direct our steps, our hearts. And as you speak to us, Lord, we would listen. So we just invite you in this place. And we thank you. We love you so much. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Pastor Corey, and particularly for that touching family story. And you may be aware, we do tape this program, and so you perhaps can play it for your daughter, and she can see and have a memory of her father and his spiritual message to us. Would you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance to the United States flag? Attention, salute, pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated. Ms. Thornton, please call the roll.
Mrs. Bell,
Present.
Dr. Chestnut,
Present.
Governor Ivy, Mrs. Manning, Mrs. McRae,
Here.
Dr. Reynolds,
Here.
Dr. Richardson, Mrs. West,
Here.
Mrs. Ziegler.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you very much, Ms. Quorum. Ms. Thornton. We will now consider a motion to approve the agenda for the March 9, 2023 meeting of the State Board of Education.
So moved. Second.
Without objection, the motion, all in favor, raise your hand. Ms. Thornton's going to get on me again.
Unanimous vote.
We will now consider a motion to approve the minutes from the February 9, 2023 meeting of the Alabama State Board of Education.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor show by raised hand. All those opposed?
Unanimous vote.
Ms. Thornton, has anybody signed up to speak today?
Yes, we have 8 public speakers.
8.
Yes, sir.
I'm calling on Mr. Jason Swan to offer the instructions and guidance for this part of our program.
Good morning. Thanks for the recognition, Dr. Reynolds. And at this time, we will conduct the public hearing portion of the state board meeting. And first of all, I want to thank everybody for being here, and obviously thank the members of the public who participate in this important process and this important function. Obviously, our board is definitely amenable to hearing everything that the public has to say, and that's what this section is about. I want to go just over a few ground rules before we get started. And as Ms. Thornton said, we have approximately 8 people that have signed up to speak. And I'll call your name in just a minute so we can kind of get a flow to make sure everybody gets in and out in a short period of time. Again, make sure you introduce yourself and then the topic that you are addressing in front of the board. Also, there's no questions to the board. You can't really direct anything to the board, so just kind of keep your comments in a general fashion. Also, only the matters that are currently before the board on this particular agenda can be discussed or as part of your public comments. And also, please, as always, observe proper decorum when addressing the board and the public. And as you probably see up on the screen, you have 2 minutes for your remarks. And please be mindful of the clock since we have so many people. We'll try to, at the end, the buzzer will go off, and I'll be here next to you. So again, please keep those comments as brief as possible. You don't have to use your whole 2 minutes, but your 2 minutes is your target. And let me go ahead and get started. I have Julia Cleveland, if everybody kind of wants to get lined up. Julia Cleveland, Donna Cood, and if I mispronounce your name, I apologize. Melinda Wilford is number 3. Number 4, Kathy Odom. Number 6, Robert Monk. Number 7, Gail Walton. And number 8, Melissa Gates. So it looks like we have first up on deck, Miss Julia Cleveland. Are you here, Miss Cleveland? Yes, it's Cleveland. Oh, Cleveland. I apologize. See, I've already messed up already. So. Okay. Well, just when you get started, the clock will start.
You can just call me Mimi. But
okay.
We'll find out.
Go ahead, Mimi.
Honorable board members and Superintendent Mackey, my name is Julia Cleveland and I'm representing Eagle Forum. We are recommending McGraw-Hill Open Court K-3. It is a complete language art curriculum that includes reading, spelling, vocabulary, writing, parts of speech, and the curriculum is divided into units with themes from science, history, social studies, art, and music. This curriculum includes a wide variety of types of writings, including poetry, fiction, nonfiction, narration, plays, fables, diary, and short stories. It weaves within its pages character traits and values our children should strive for, such as respect, friendship, trust, honesty, loyalty, generosity, teamwork, duty, responsibility, and bravery. The units highlight citizenship, democracy, the electoral project, our government, the Constitution, and our flag. It breaks down how our government works and how we as citizens can take part in our government. It teaches our children to love our country and to be good citizens. There are units about our country's history, including the westward movement, Native Americans, railroads, travel, and early presidents. Science units explore topics such as plants and animals and how they work together, the weather and being prepared, roots and seeds. There are stories from different cultures and countries from around the world. The stories are exciting, they're thought-provoking, and they're engaging. We believe that our children can learn from a curriculum that is well-written, organized, and has beautiful artwork. It is racially and ethnically diverse. McGraw-Hill's been publishing curriculum for our schools for over 70 years. This curriculum is still fresh, timely, and includes up-to-date technology for our bright, technology-driven students. Thank you for your time. God bless you.
I'm just going to go ahead and make sure we've got the right folks up. Ms. Cood, Donna Cood is next. Okay. Again, as soon as you start speaking, the clock will start, and you don't have to use all your time.
Thank you. Thank you. Honorable board members and Superintendent Mackey, my name is Donna Cood. I'm here for Eagle Forum, and I'm speaking, asking that you would reject the Amplify curriculum for K through 3 ELA. I am a member of the Alabama Bar, but I'm a volunteer, and I spent a day reading the first part of the first grade readers and the third grade readers under the Amplify curriculum. And what I found is that, in general, these stories that I read were characterized by a complete absence of joy. The themes were centered around very negative kinds of behaviors, and lots of anger was shown, particularly anger of those in power or authority. There were themes of fearfulness. The stories also lacked resolution, or they would end in a bad resolution. The characters treated each other in large part with disrespect, with contempt, or sometimes outright cruelty. There was no depiction of, or very little depiction of, the kinds of things we would like to see in these stories, like kindness, generosity, honesty, forgiveness. That was totally absent in these stories. And there were many stories about other religions, but there was no coverage of the Christian religion. We would ask that you would please not accept the Amplify and to go with the McGraw-Hill. I did write a 5-page detailed memo on March the 3rd that I emailed to each of you. I would appreciate it if you would read them. I have an extra copy if you would like it.
Thank you very much for your comments, and I did receive the document you sent.
Thank you, Ms. Wilford. I'm sorry, Ms. Wilford is up next. That's Ms. Cood. Melinda Williford.
Is this going to be appropriate?
Yeah, it should be. Just move it down.
Okay, thank you.
Whatever is best for you.
Okay. I'm Melinda Williford of Spanish Fort, Alabama, principal's daughter, teacher's wife, mother, grandmother, representing the thousands of families in Baldwin County and Mobile County who could not be here today. I'm here to talk about the textbook adoption. I'm here because of what I thought was a war on other fronts is now at my front door in our own state of Alabama. I'm a foot soldier in protecting the innocence of our children. I'm part of a formal report that has already been submitted to the board. Because we are not reading specialists, we are addressing what pertains to content and illustrations. Amplify CKLA material is not suitable for K through 3 adoption for some of the following. It does not support community and pride in America heritage, better supported by McGraw-Hill. Fails to provide balanced illustration of American culture and other cultural backgrounds. Approximately 90% of all illustrations of K through 1 are of minorities. Doesn't adequately influence students for success. Displays family dynamics, often failed to include nuclear families. Example of this is in the kindergarten story Meg Tots. Meg's Tots has an inappropriate illustration on the same page with the words, Meg is Pat's best pal. This could better be served with a picture of children instead of two adults caring for each other. Stories of fear. In grade 3, there's stories about a little girl in Afghanistan whose parents get taken away in the middle of the night with graphic pictures. Kindergarten, inappropriate storylines. The biggest example, little boys would be misled to want to read this story about Thor because he also is a current superhero. A quote from the story. Thurm returned with Thor's hammer. He set it down next to Thor. Ooh, said Thor in the best girlish voice. It's so big, may I touch it? If it pleases you, fair Thor, said Thurm. It pleases me, said Thor, still using the girlish voice. Then lifting his hammer above his head and bursting out of the wedding dress, he called out in a voice like thunder, it pleases me greatly. We feel Amplify's material is not suited for K through 3. Thank you for the opportunity to speak from my heart.
Thank you very much for your comments.
Ms. Odom, Kathy Odom, next. Again, when you start speaking, the clock will start.
Okay, let me see how this, is this, my name is Kathy Odom, lifetime resident of Mobile, Alabama, and I love Alabama. I recently reviewed some K through 3 English language artwork books with some parents and grandparents from Mobile and Baldwin counties. I raised 2 sons and I have 4 grandchildren. I have 2 grandchildren that are under 5 years old. I have seen around the country and Alabama stories about CRT and DEI in our schools and workplace. I heard how our young innocent children are being groomed. This alarmed me, so I got involved. I have a business degree and no background in education. I viewed this material from the viewpoint, would I want my young grandchildren looking at or reading these books? I personally reviewed grade 3 English language artwork books by Benchmark. A few things that stuck out. Because Alabama curriculum incorporates integrated learning, history and science are included in the booklets. Who checks for accuracy? America was referred to as a democracy. We are a republic. The vocabulary is not age appropriate, too advanced for a 3rd grader. And I thought personally there was too much black history. Very little about America the Beautiful and our founding fathers. The process for vetting the books is not transparent. If parents are to view these books, there should be more than 5 locations. 30 days is not enough. Toward the end, we learned there are passwords that you could get into more books. And Kevin Bayus, who is chairman in charge of selecting these K through 3 books, co-authored Chapter 1 in incorporating LGBTQ+ identities in K through 12 curriculum and policy. This troubles me. I hope it troubles you. In conclusion, I feel that there should be more transparency in selecting our school books. Presently, I feel very uneasy about what may be selected.
Thank you very
Our
much,
children
ma'am.
and
Your time is
grandchildren
up.
deserve the best.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Ms. Odom. Next on the list is Mr. Robert Monk, and after Mr. Monk, there'll be Gail Walton. Mr. Monk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, board members. Our comments are based on the rubric from the Course of Study Instructional Review Forms. The first section are non-negotiables, and there are 2 non-negotiables that we feel apply to Amplify, and the books I'm referring to are published by Amplify. The first is the dates of the instructional materials. They're older than the 3 and 5 year, the 3-year and the 5-year extension. Therefore, they should be removed. The second thing is the usernames and passwords are not created and active online for online access by reviewers and the public throughout the entire state. And this, again, is a requirement, and it was not available to the public. The next one, under the Course of Study standard, the level of treatment. The level of complexity is not appropriate for instruction per the standard. I have a couple of examples, but for time, I'm going to move on. The other standard is number 16, multicultural representation. There is not a balanced representation of cultures and groups in multiple settings, occupations, careers, and lifestyles. Then the next standard is motivational strategies, and that's number 38. The material does not positively influence the expectations of students for success through tasks that relate to student interest, connect to cultural backgrounds, and provide activities that are relevant to the student life. For these reasons, we oppose and think you should reject Amplify. In the review process, we rated McGraw-Hill as Tier 1 that exemplifies quality.
Thank you very much, sir.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Monk. Next on the list, we have Ms. Gail Walton. Ms. Walton, you recognize?
Well, Superintendent Mackey and honorable school board members, my name is Gail Walton, and I'm here on behalf of the Education Action Team of the Metropolitan Mobile area. We believe the purpose of education is a search for the truth and valid ideas, time-tested biblical values, to empower parents and schools to instruct children to become healthy, patriotic, productive citizens, created equally with inalienable rights as outlined by our Constitution. I'm a retired Mobile County Public School System teacher. In my 20-plus years in the classroom, I've taught nearly every grade and every subject in public and private schools in Mobile. But I've been retired 10 years, and things have really changed. I know we don't teach the textbook, but we teach the standards. So the textbook is a tool. It's extremely helpful to the teacher, though, to have all the standards already correlated for the phonics, the reading, the grammar, the spelling, and the writing. So this is a welcome strength of the curriculums that I examined. The teachers will really appreciate this. It's also helpful to have the publishers correlate the science of reading and multisensory methods for the K through 3. I couldn't help but wonder if the integration of the other disciplines like science and social studies, etc., into the ELA curriculum are aligned with those particular standards and the scope and sequence of those subjects. So I'm familiar with the Literacy Act and the implementation of this act involving the importance.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
I'm sorry.
I understand it's sometimes nervous. We get nervous up here, too.
Okay, thank you very much. Next on the list is Ms. Melissa Gates. Ms. Gates?
Hi, Melissa Gates, native Mobilian, mother of 2, proud Mimi of 1 and 2 on the way. And this is why I'm here. I'm also Eagle Forum, by the way. I know you've probably already kind of made up your mind what you're going to do, but the Amplify materials are designed to indoctrinate our children with DEI, SEL, woke agenda, and grooming our little ones. This is destroying families and our country. As elected officials, you are responsible for all curriculum for all these children in the state of Alabama. If you are a believer in Jesus Christ, which I hope you are, our Lord and Savior, you will be accountable for everything you say and do. So be careful. There is a way that seems right to man, but in the end, it leads to destruction. Proverbs 14:12. It would be better for them to have been thrown into the sea with a millstone tied around their neck than to cause one of these little ones to stumble. My heart is broken over this. And I hope you consider what the Holy Spirit is probably telling you what you should really be doing. I believe this is demonic. God bless y'all. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your concept and concerns for us.
Okay,
I
thank
see
you.
another gentleman behind you.
Thank you, Ms. Gates. Next up is Mark Dixon.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm Mark Dixon with A+ Education Partnership and here to encourage you to adopt the textbook recommendations before you. As this board knows all too well, the reading is the foundation of all learning, and you have made ensuring that every student has this fundamental skill a top priority and have committed significant time, effort, and resources to ensuring that our students and teachers have what they need to make that a reality. In addition to training in the science of reading, a high-quality core reading program aligned to the science of reading is the most important tool in the hands of our teachers every day. And that is why it is critical that you adopt the recommendations. Last year, members of this board understandably had concerns about adopting a textbook list with only one core reading option. It's certainly important that local districts have multiple high-quality options to make the best choice for their students. And according to Dr. Mackey at your work session last month, a recommended list before you has multiple options. At your request, the Literacy Task Force, made up of reading experts from across Alabama, has gone through multiple rigorous review processes that in their recommendations are fully aligned to the science of reading and meet the requirements of the Alabama Literacy Act. As the facilitator supporting them, I can assure you thorough does not begin to describe the detailed process and long days of work they've committed to this goal on your behalf. Timing is also a factor. Local school systems are waiting your decision to go through their own local review process and get their chosen program into the hands of our teachers. Finally, I know this board is committed to ensuring that our students and teachers have the high-quality instructional materials they need, and we must have a high bar of ensuring that these materials align to the science of reading. We can't slap a sticker that says science of reading on it, something that hasn't worked for many years. And if we don't hold them firm for the quality and alignment, then they will never have an incentive to change. So I thank you for your time and consideration, and thank you for your leadership. We encourage you to adopt these recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is that the last speaker, Mr. Swan?
Yes, sir. And I wanted to say on behalf of the board to everybody who had comments to offer, we thank you. Obviously, regardless of your viewpoint, they're all worthy of comment. Thank everybody for their professionalism. And at this time, Dr. Reynolds, that will conclude the public hearing.
Thank you. And on behalf of the board, I will tell you, if there's anybody, any group that's open to parental and public comment, it's this elected Board of Education. And we are committed to do the best we can to make decisions as we can under our guidance and our best thoughts. But we do appreciate everyone coming, and we do solicit people to come and speak more often to us. Thank you very much. Ms. Thornton, is there any unfinished business?
There's no unfinished business.
We will now begin the new business. We will now consider a resolution recognizing March 6-10, 2023 as National School Breakfast Week in Alabama. Do I hear a motion to adopt the resolution?
So moved.
I
Second.
heard a second. All those in favor show by raised hand. All those opposed?
Unanimous vote.
Thank you very much. We will now consider a resolution proclaiming March 12-18, 2023 as Child and Adult Child Care Food Program Week in Alabama. Do I hear a motion to adopt this resolution?
Second.
Thank you. I hear a motion and second. All those in favor show by raised hand.
Unanimous vote.
Thank you very much. We will now consider a resolution to approve recommendations of the State Textbook Committee for adoption of textbooks for English Language Arts grades K through 3. Do I hear a motion to adopt the resolution?
So moved.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
I second.
I hear a motion and a second. Now, is there any discussion?
Mr. Chairman?
I have, pardon me, well, I respect that, but I've had 3 requests, and I'll put you on number 4.
And I'll be number 5, or whatever is last.
4. Dr. Mackey is asked to explain, and in conjunction with my desires, the full process that we arrive at in the textbook adoption process. And Dr. Mackey, please.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, it's been said this morning, thank you very much for those who've come to speak. Dr. Reynolds and I were talking, and he asked that I go through the process for textbook adoption, which is, of course, follows the state code for textbook adoption, and we do this every year. This morning we are looking, the board is looking particularly at K through 3 reading, core reading textbooks. And it's a little unusual from what we've done normally because the state has a textbook committee. The textbook committee is appointed by the board. One of the things in the textbook law that's very good, there are two laws that work together. I promise not to go too long, but a little boring explanation here. But the one is the standards and the second is the textbook. And we normally adopt standards in one year and textbooks in the next. So right now we have a committee working on science standards. After the board adopts science standards, then we'll work on textbooks to match those standards. As one of the speakers said this morning, it's important to teachers that they have materials that match the standards, though that teacher was coming out. She said, you teach the standards, not the textbook, but textbook certainly supports the standards. The English language arts standards, of course, were redone a few years ago, and the textbooks were set to all be adopted last year at this time, and all were except for English language arts reading, just reading in the K through 3. And as one of the speakers pointed out, that was because there was only one textbook that met the qualifications according to two committees, and I'm going to go in a minute, our textbook committee and our literacy task force, and the board felt that we needed more than, they didn't want to just adopt one series. And so they asked the textbook committee, which had been technically sunsetted, to come back and continue to work just on that one little piece. So spelling, all of our other textbooks were adopted for English language arts except for K3 reading. In addition to the textbook law, though, there is the Alabama Literacy Act, which says that the Literacy Task Force, a group of educators, is to vet and recommend, and I won't get into the exact wording of the law, but essentially vet and recommend core reading programs for K3, which of course is the textbook, the program. And it's obviously bigger than, everybody in the room knows, it's bigger than just a textbook now. There are a lot of supporting materials that go with it. But core reading programs. So in the year before, I cannot mention vendors, but I will say that the Literacy Task Force said that two of those that were submitted, and I think there were 14 vendors that submitted, 2 of them met the rigorous standards of the Alabama Literacy Act. One of them, however, did not meet a standard set in the textbook law. The legislature actually changed the textbook law or amended the textbook law, and so, which led to the board, again, asking for a second vetting. In the second time around, I can't say how many, people keep asking me that, but they looked again at them, and a number, more than one, was recommended by the Literacy Task Force and the Textbook Committee. And they both recommended the same group. And the Textbook Committee, because of the literacy, in respect to the Literacy Act, said that they were only going to review the ones that had come from the Literacy Task Force as recommended, vetted and recommended. So the Textbook Committee, I can tell you, they have all of the ones that were approved by the Literacy Task Force, the Textbook Committee also forwarded. They did not take away from nor supplement or supplant the list the Literacy Task Force had recommended, so that the ones the board votes on today, should the board approve the list, would have been recommended by the Literacy Task Force and then stamped for approval by the Textbook Committee. But the Textbook Committee only looked at the ones that had already been approved by the Literacy Task Force. So it's multiple steps. The process, of course, is a somewhat open process. Some people mentioned some things this morning. I do want to say, of course, most of these materials, they've all been, not most, they've been on display for many months. They are on display at libraries. I think there are 14 sites around the state, and plus there's some materials you can get online. If people had a hard time accessing materials, even though this process is passed, we'll be in a new process soon, and I would say let us know that, and we'll try to work on that. At the board's request, we've added more libraries in the last 2 years because we had certain parts of the state where people had to drive more than an hour to get to a site. And so we've tried to get a site within an hour of each place. We were asked in the last month, our department was asked if we could tell people, the public, which ones were on the recommended list so that people who wanted to go to the library and look at them wouldn't even look at the ones that weren't recommended. And I understand how that would be helpful to you, but no, we can't do that. And that's a part of the state's contract and procurement process. Because if we were to leak out what was in consideration for the board, these are multi-million-dollar, multi-year contracts that the governor has to sign, and that could manipulate the price of the books, and people could get into manipulating contracts and those kind of things. And so that's why there is contract secrecy. At the board's request, the legislature did lighten that last year, and so it used to be that we couldn't tell you who was on the list until after the contracts have been fully executed, which generally takes about 6 weeks after the board's vote, because we have to go through a process with the textbook company's attorneys. They have to sign the contracts, they come back over here, they go through a contract review process, and then they're ultimately signed by the governor, and that takes many weeks to do. But now, with the change in the law, we can tell people after the vote which vendors are on the list for both what we call core reading program and supplemental reading programs. This same process is currently being undergone for some career textbooks. I realize they're not as interesting maybe to the public, but this process goes on every single year. So we're looking right now at some career textbooks. At this time next year, we will most likely be doing science textbooks. I say most likely because we won't begin the textbook process until the board approves the standards. And in some cases, the board asks for more time on the standards. And so even though it's supposed to be a year-long process, it can take 2 years. So that's kind of just an explanation of the process. I promise you that everybody working on this, I have met with both the Literacy Task Force and the textbook committees, and everybody will not agree. There's no question that everybody in this room does not agree on what should or shouldn't be in the classroom, those kind of things. But I promise you that I've not met anybody on either one of those committees who does not care about the education and development of children, right? You know, and that's a hard thing when you're state superintendent and you deal with people who disagree. But if everybody comes about it with the end in mind that we've got to do what's right for children, then we'll get there. And if I may, Dr. Reynolds, I know I'm going on, but one more thing I want to say, and that is that the list the board adopts is a state-approved list that then local school boards can choose from. So they choose. There are 3 options. So once the board approves, now again, today or any time, the board approves a textbook list. If it's on the approved state list, school boards can buy it and implement it in the classroom. They should, of course, vet the material, have their teachers look at it and decide if it's appropriate. They feel like it's most appropriate for their classrooms, but that's a school board decision, local school board decision. If there are materials that were not reviewed by the state committee or were not approved or rejected by the state board, they can still be used by local school boards, but they have to go through a local adoption process where the local board appoints a committee and they go through an adoption process very similar to what I just explained to you. And each board has that local right to do. However, the third one is if the board rejects a book, then the local board may not consider using that book as a core teaching material paid for with state money. There's still an option for local boards to purchase it, but they can't use state resources to do that if the material has been rejected by the state board. So there are multiple levels. I apologize because it is very confusing, but I promise you we try really hard to keep it straight and to make sure that local boards know they have the options. And many boards are waiting today for this vote to decide what their next steps would be. Some have gone ahead and purchased their own materials and used non-state dollars to do it. So we're in multiple places. I'll be glad to answer questions too, but Dr. Reynolds, I thank you for the time to at least explain the process up front.
And Dr. Mackey, thank you very much, and I think you made a very complex.
May I say one more thing, sir?
Yes, sir.
I apologize. There is a penalty. I know that many of you are very frustrated with me and your board members
Not
because because you've asked, some of you asked me, you've asked board members to let you see the list. It is in the state law, not the board code, it's in the law, that it is a Class C penalty. I don't remember felony or misdemeanor, but to divulge that list ahead of time. So I know the public wants to see the list. A couple of the speakers this morning mentioned that frustration. I know it would be easier if you could go to the library and read off of just 3 or 4 and not have to look at all 14, whether that's reading or it's science or whatever. But the board members they cannot do that because of the penalty that is over them. So, yes, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Mackey, and for the additional clarification. President Pro Tem
Yes,
West is asked to speak.
Yes, I just have a couple questions for Dr. Mackey, and very simple, brief questions, and then a comment. Dr. Mackey, you did mention that this process began with the Literacy Task Force. You are considered the state chief. That is your title. There's only one chief in each state, so you are the top educator, and I would like to know if you were brought into this process in the beginning with the Literacy Task Force. If you were, please explain your involvement and your role as state chief in the process.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. So I have stayed completely absent from the process of reviewing and selecting textbooks. I have not read any of them. I stay away from it. I got the recommended list as you got the recommended list last month, and I feel like that's important. It's not just this. I was the same way with previous textbook selections. So textbooks is the one of the few things, I won't say the only thing, but as you know, most things the board votes on have to be brought to you by recommendation of the superintendent. So I recommend you vote. Textbooks, in the textbook law, there is no provision for the superintendent or the Literacy Act to be involved in this process. And so I respect those laws and remove myself from the process. Now, the department does provide facilitation. So we've provided space for them to meet. We will let them obviously use our email. We're going to support them. And I even, Mrs. Ziegler's on the task force, and I don't know, she's on different subcommittees, but she can tell you I come by sometimes and I offer them moral support and we'll talk to them, but I'm not going to sit down and get involved in the reading of passages and those things with them. So that's just, I feel like my role. I don't want to be seen as, trying to push the committees one way or another.
Thank you, Dr. Mackey. And this is the envelope that I received last month, and it is marked confidential.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you briefly repeat the instructions the board were given at the work session for how we were to handle the contents of this envelope?
Yes, ma'am. Even though it's frustrating that they cannot be released under penalty of law, that board members cannot release the contents of that envelope to anybody. So we can, it's certainly open and very public. Every vendor that has submitted for consideration, but we cannot reveal which ones have been forwarded on for recommendation for approval, or what they scored, because there's a scoring metric in there, and we can't show the public what they scored until after all of this is approved, and then it will become public. And we will make it public today, should the board approve it. If the board turns down the list, then that envelope goes in the shredder, and it never becomes public.
Thank you. I bring this up because I want to thank those folks that emailed me and took the time to communicate. I did not respond to any emails because of the law and my respect for this process and the instructions that I was given as a board member. So please forgive me and other board members if we did not respond. There was no intent to be rude in any way in not responding, but we simply could not do so. I'd like to say that I have personal disappointment that our publishers do not have more materials that align with the standards in the science of reading. It is my hope that today's hearing will get the attention of publishers. I do not believe that publishers necessarily print materials that adhere to the common sense values that we hold in Alabama, the very family values that we raise our children with. However, we do have to adopt textbooks. I do believe it is incumbent upon our local school boards, once recommendations are made, to dig in and do the work. I was a local school board member. I have met with local textbook committees. It is a lot of work, but it is necessary work. And so it is my hope that those that serve on local school boards, those superintendents and principals will dig in and do the hard work. Dr. Mackey, it is my understanding, and I've asked this question before, that should any story, any material in any textbook be considered inappropriate for a local school system, that that material can be redacted. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am, that is correct. There's no obligation, even if a local board adopts a particular, again, this is whether it's reading or any area, there's no obligation that the teacher or the system through their curriculum plan have to include everything in the textbook. Again, you know, when I was teaching science, there were whole chapters we skipped, sometimes because they didn't align with our standards, so we didn't need to teach those. But more specifically to your point, if there's a story that a teacher feels uncomfortable with, well, there's no rule from the state that they would have to teach it. Now, I would caution that local school boards may adopt a curriculum plan or a map that shows what order they're in, and if they're going to, I don't want any teachers out there to say they heard the state superintendent said they didn't have to follow their local curriculum map. They need to talk to their principal about that. But there is absolutely no requirement from us that they teach all the stories.
Finally, the state has invested a great deal of time and talent to adopt the science of reading, and it is my commitment as board member to continue that work. I appreciate everyone's input today and have a great deal of respect for those local parents, grandparents, concerned teachers who've reached out to me, and I'm just very, very thankful that we're all on the same team for students, learning to read and read proficiently in Alabama. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. West. I now recognize Board Member Jackie Ziegler.
Yes, thank you. And I also do wish to thank all those that have reached out to us and many of from District 1. I applaud y'all's hard work and dedication. It is not an easy task. And for that, I am most appreciative. I want to, again, I know it's been stated, but I think an important emphasis needs to be stated once again. It's the teacher materials, the teacher's additions are the ones that were thoroughly, completely vetted by the Literacy Task Force to ensure that the science of reading standards are being taught to fidelity. The literacy law, and I refuse to call it the act, it's the law, and we must follow the law, clearly delineates those requirements by which we were charged and by which we must abide. By having said that, the stories I consider are like stepping stones on the journey to reading. They can be used, they can be skipped, they can be replaced by many other forms of worthy literature. I know many a times, when I was in the classroom, there would be a story that I would think would be perfect for that day and time because maybe a bug came in the window. You know, you learn how to use common sense. But what may not be skipped or replaced are those standards that teach the science of reading. And we do know in the state of Alabama what the science of reading can do for our students, because at the very beginning with the original Alabama Reading Initiative, that is what we were doing, teaching those phonetic skills and foundations upon which many of us, and I was one, that were taught. And we were skyrocketing with our scores. The children were reading. Many times, it has been discussed how states would come to us to see what we were doing, and it was indeed the science of reading. Let me again clearly state that a vote for the cited publications would allow the districts to choose the one that best fits and works for their students. But a no vote would remove any possibility to use state tax money to select a publication that holds true to the science of reading. A no vote knocks out anyone on the list, and a split vote is not allowed. So we as a board have many times discussed how important it is that we must get our kids on the moving forward to teaching them how to read and to return to those productive days of the Alabama Reading Initiative. This is the way to do so, by keeping in mind to teaching the science of reading to fidelity. We've done it before, and we shall do it again, and I thank you kindly.
Thank you, Ms. Ziegler. I now call on Board Member Stephanie Bell.
Are there more? You had mentioned there were others.
No, I said two that had asked ahead of you. You asked to be next.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank
Sorry.
you. No, I just wanted to make sure that.
No, I try to follow the stipulations.
I very much appreciate what my colleagues have shared, and of course what Dr. Mackey has shared. And I do have a question regarding, before I actually make a statement, the question about the split vote. How is that defined, just for those who are here?
I'll clarify, as I
mentioned,
understand the
split vote.
parliamentary rules, we have 8 members present. The governor has other obligations, and therefore I am presiding as vice president of the board. Any motion that's before us takes a majority vote, which, as I count, would be 5 out of 8.
So if as a board, we wanted to delete a textbook, we could do so?
No, ma'am, you would have to have a motion to amend the motion. And actually, this motion comes in its entity from the State Textbook Committee, and I know you've been on the board longer than I, and understand the motion comes and the resolutions come from the State Textbook Committee, and I'm not aware, unless you can clarify, that we modify the recommendation. It's a vote up and down from the State Textbook Committee.
Well, I'm not trying to be
No, I know that.
antagonistic. I'm actually asking a valid question, because in the past, we actually have, and I've been doing this for some time, we have deleted textbooks from a recommendation from a textbook committee. And I do appreciate the work that has been done on this committee. I know it has not been an easy task to have to return, especially during November and December, when those are very busy months for people who gave their time and made tremendous effort to do what the board had requested. And I understand the reasoning, because there was only one textbook, and I'm not sure legally where that stands. Can you share with the public what that one textbook was, Dr. Mackey?
No. For last year?
Yes.
No, ma'am. No.
That's what I thought.
Right, cannot.
So we cannot share that. But from the standpoint of where we stand and all of the textbooks, I do very much appreciate, because I did have questions from very interested parents, grandparents, teachers, active and retired, those who had been in education at some level, higher ed, from all over the state. And I did pass on some concerns that I had received to Dr. Mackey and Chuck Markham regarding some books that they felt like were missing. And again, the challenge was to try to help without giving away the information other than what had already been sent out to local superintendents, which is public information. And where they were located, how you could access, I understand somehow people received the username, and that was actually a very positive thing. So hopefully board members can have that information in the past. I think it's good that people want to become involved, and that's how it has been in the past. We've had people from all walks of life, both sides of every issue you can imagine, who have stood before this board and shared their concerns, and we have always been respectful, and they have as well. Every now and then you could see the passion, But that's not a bad thing. That's part of the problem, is that there was a dip. People started taking for granted things that would be done. And the more you have people involved in the process, the better it is at every single level. And because we are the ones who, as a state board, open that gate, and so just to use an expression, to provide opportunities for locals to make a selection from a list that is already shortened because of what the laws require of not only the course of study, the textbook committee. Through the Literacy Act, the task force does a lot of vetting for us. And of course, the task force is separate. Although they work with the board, they are a separate entity. And so that makes it a little bit more complicated in terms of the board's ownership and the fact that we are limited in many ways by laws that are put in place by others who serve across the street. That said, I am very concerned about passing through the gates textbooks that I have concerns about. Those concerns have been shared with me. I have also read some of the excerpts myself. The parts, these little stories about the various gods and goddesses, some of that is actually taken from Nordic legends. I've been to Ireland. I've seen firsthand where, if you've been to Galway, you see where the stones are placed, and they come up with this grand story about how those stones were placed. But the stories in the Amplify series are just way out there. And even some of those Nordic tales are not necessarily meant for most children at the age level that they're being shared, where they're being shared through stories where the child is supposed to be interested and wanting to learn to read. If you want, that was a problem with going back to my era, the stories about Dick and Jane, but at least, they were kind of silly and fun. But these stories are just not only inappropriate for the age groups, but they don't really, I don't think, hold an interest. Children in Ireland may be interested because it sort of connects them with some of these Nordic tales that they've told throughout the years, but I don't even think that would be the case because they're not in line with what actually has been folk legend. And if you go to Trinity College there, you'll understand even more why we don't need those kind of textbooks in a reading series for grades K through 3. They don't fit. That said, I really do appreciate my local board members in my district. We have some of the best schools in the state. They do a lot of work. I value what they do. I value the teachers, those who work very hard in the classroom and have worked there for many years, which leads me to the next concern. A lot of the newer teachers, and everyone knows about what we call the teacher shortage, which seems to be lessening a bit. We seem to be seeing more who are interested in teaching, but they're new. And they don't have the kind of discernment a lot of the teachers who we heard from today would have in a classroom as far as picking books out. Publishers don't necessarily encourage that. I've seen that over the years. It's been a long time, and I've watched many a process. But I trust them at the local level, but to the extent that we're asking them, even in the classroom, to pull books out, don't think that's the kind of thinking we need. I understand the need for background in terms of the science of reading, and that is one of the requirements. I think that's important because I have personally been an advocate to ensure that we have important instruction for children who are identified and some who are not, but may have dyslexia. That is something that we need to look at, but I think if we have a bad textbook and we don't take it off the list, I think it sends the wrong message to the publishers. That has happened in the past when we've been Alabama has ended up with some of the worst textbooks in the country because we're not Texas or California. The market is not as great. I understand that there's some textbooks on this list that are being marketed across the country and sold as the answer to the science of reading. That's my personal opinion. Others may disagree. But I have a hard time voting for a recommendation where I have a major problem with a textbook that's already being used in some parts of the state. I understand the financial problem, but when you start talking about children, I think their lives, their thinking, the way you mold them starting very young, is more important and more valuable to me than any amount of money. And I don't think it's worth it to head in the wrong direction by saying as a state board, we support this particular program because, and I don't think you can, if you had to, in the end, I don't think you could justify approving at least one of the series on that list without divulging beforehand what is included on the recommendation. So with that, I conclude, and if you have any response, I'm open to it. But those are my personal feelings, and I stand by them, and I will vote against it because of one series on the list. And I think it's a shame because there are recommendations that I would say yes, wholeheartedly. But there's one that I just can't, and it's not just one piece of it. There are multiple pieces in that reading program that I don't think need to be recommended, and I don't want to add my voice of recommendation.
Thank you, Isabel. I will clarify one more thing. The issue before the board is from the textbook committee. The board can adopt it. At this time, the board can have a motion to amend or modify the action before the board. And each member on their own, we're all sworn to abide by the laws of Alabama and our own consciences, will have an opportunity to vote. To be so, and if the ruling of the chair, which is me right now, is challenged, then then there are parliamentary procedures available for you to challenge my decision. But my decision is the board has a motion subject to amendment before it. Is there any other comments any other board member may choose to make at this time?
I do have a point of clarification I would like to ask as far as a point of order and how it could be done.
The point of order is always under consideration. Please state your point of order, Ms. Bell.
Yes. Dr. Mackey, again, going back to the question I asked earlier, if you make a recommendation to amend a specific part of what is being recommended to us, namely a book or a series of books, is that in violation of the law?
That would be correct. I cannot recommend changing the textbook committees. It's not a recommendation. They're sending you a list to be voted up or down. If I change the list, I would be in violation of the law. You're correct.
Well, and may I ask our legal counsel?
No, I asked you to direct the question to me, please.
Well, I ask you, but you're not an attorney. I know you're a lot of things.
Please direct the question to me, and then I'll do as I dispose of. Thank you,
Okay.
ma'am. You've been on the board enough to understand procedures.
I've been on it for a long time.
I know.
And I do understand completely.
You remind us.
Well, I do like you.
And I like
You're
everybody.
still my friend. But the question has to do with the legal issue. If I name the book series, my understanding, based on what Dr. Mackey just shared, Your Honor, is if I name it specifically, even though there's been this long list and everyone is familiar with the long list, if I amended it to include one name only, I can't do that. So if you want to direct it to legal counsel.
I'll direct that question to you. Jason, would you take the mic and answer the question? Mr. Jason Swan is our general counsel.
Thank you, Dr. Reynolds. Yeah, Dr. Mackey's right. That is submitted as a entity, as a non-amendable entity to the board for an up or down vote, according to the law.
So you can't name, excuse me, may I do this? So you cannot name a specific textbook that is on the recommended list. That's what I understood.
But you can make a motion to delay consideration, that's the motion in order, which would delay the entire process.
Oh, well, I'll make a motion to delay the entire process.
Is there a second to that motion? Hearing no second, the motion fails. We will now consider the main motion. All those in favor of the motion, please show by raised hand. All those opposed? Is going to please communicate the vote count.
The vote carries by 7-1.
7-1. The motion having been carried 7-1, the matter is approved. The recommendation by the textbook committee are adopted. Item D, we will now consider a motion to adopt a new Alabama Administrative Code Rule 12290-3-1-.01 pertaining to first grade readiness. Do I hear a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Ms. Bell.
Okay. So my understanding, and I do appreciate the few changes that have been made, is that we still don't have a statewide policy for those students other than, I mean, this is a question, so Dr. Mackey may want to answer it, since a lot of people did not attend the work session. But it does not have one school readiness exam. Also, will it take care of the problem, and I hear it all the time, of students who are moved into the first grade, but they're not ready for it? And I understand here it just says you're going to provide a list and disseminate programs to inform parents and guardians of first grade readiness strategies. So there's some things that are taken care of, but overall, I don't know that it takes care of the issue that we have been asked to discuss regarding moving children on and to ensure that they are, at least to a certain extent, ready for first grade.
Let me answer some things first. This, procedurally, this rule has been out for 2 months for public comment pursuant to law. We have had every opportunity for the board on 2 occasions in work sessions to comment. The projection of whether it will solve all the problems is somewhat subjective, but I will then defer to Superintendent Mackey for any comments or response he chooses to give at this time.
Thank you.
Sure. So I think the answer to your question is yes. It will absolutely make it better to make sure that children are ready to go to first grade. And I think the question was a little long, but the short answer is yes. This is about getting children entering first grade to be prepared to require them to go to kindergarten, subject to there is ultimately if a parent says, I know my child is not ready for first grade, I know my child is not likely to be successful in first grade, but my child is 6 and I want them in first grade anyway, then that they still have a right to do. We cannot change that process. The legislature would have to change that. But what this does obviously is say those children either should be going to kindergarten or should be otherwise prepared for first grade in a way they can demonstrate on an assessment to be determined by a local school board. We will provide assistance and a model for an assessment, but it would be up to each local school board to adopt their own assessment.
I will also clarify that this issue came before us after a presentation by the chairman of the Legislative Education Representative Legislative Policy Committee. And it was part of a bill that didn't pass last year, but it is also, if you read and heard the legislative move, there's a move before the legislature, and we don't know how they'll react. The board just has to deal with the budget to make kindergarten mandatory. And this does not detract or take away local control. Part of the reasons that the board in our discussions have not specified a specific examination is our commitment to you the public of Alabama and to each local school board to maintain and foster local control to the largest degree possible, yet providing a framework to guide Alabama education in the best direction. Are there any other comments?
I do have a follow-up question, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. If we see, as there's a complaint everywhere I go about children who are not ready, and we, of course, have the discussion about holding children back, retaining them in the third grade if they cannot read. The problem that I see here is the fact that each local board, it sounds great, but when you say that it has to be consistent with Section 1628.4, shall adopt and implement policies that ensure students being enrolled in or promoted to the first grade can demonstrate first grade readiness. My concern is that there's no guarantee that these local boards, unless we have some type of follow-up, and how do we ensure that they're actually going to work? And I'm not convinced that they will. We see a lot of those problems, and without naming systems, there's some that I will not worry about because they already do that, but there are others that I really am very concerned about, and I don't think it's in the child's best interest, Dr. Mackey.
I understand your if question and your conjecture. I certainly can't reply as a 50-year educator to all the concepts and possible ramifications you mentioned, but we have had an extensive comment period, and until you just mentioned that, and you did mention some things in the work session,
I did.
I have seen no reason not to proceed with consideration at the full board. Are there any other comments on this section? Hearing none, we will now call the question on considering the motion. All in favor of the motion and as presented, please show by raised hand. All opposed? Ms. Thornton, please communicate the vote count.
The vote carries 6-2.
Thank you very much. We will now consider a motion to adopt a new Alabama Administrative Code Rule 290-3-3-.60 pertaining to alternate teacher preparation organizations. Do I hear a motion to adopt?
I so move.
I hear a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, ma'am.
I have expressed concerns before, and you've mentioned that about some of the other things I've said previously, but this one concerns me because of what I've seen in other states, and I think of Texas and some other states where they've tried to implement this. This is basically online, and it also provides for no opportunity that I can see to monitor faculty, and that concerns me. I appreciate all the other additions, but that part of it I'm still concerned about. And if you would like to respond through Dr. Mackey, that would be fine.
I'll just comment that I'm very familiar with large numbers of states, and my close association with National Association of School Boards and of the potential ramifications. Dr. Mackey, would you care to make a comment at this time?
Nothing new, sir. I think this has been, as you know, that this has been on several work sessions beginning, I think, in June of 2022. There is an Act 2022-239 says the state board will modify its policies subject to the Act. And as y'all know, we've met with deans multiple times. I will tell you, since the last, so I know this was up for formally public comments, really public comment. We've gotten a lot of comment before the formal period opened 60 days ago, but we had obviously folks who wanted changes made before that. We've had no input since then. So it seems to be everybody's satisfied now.
And to clarify, this is for adoption. It has already been out for public comment for over 2 months. And now, are there any other comments by any other board members? Ms. Thornton, will you All those in favor show by raised hands. Any opposed? Ms. Thornton, would you communicate the vote, please?
Vote carries 7-1.
Thank you very much. Item F, we will now consider a recommendation to hire Dr. Autumn Jeters as Assistant State Superintendent for Support Services at pay grade 90, step 17, to be effective April 3, 2023. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor by show by raised hand. All those opposed by like sign. Ms. Thornton, will you communicate the vote?
Abstain.
Excuse me, and there I hear one abstention.
Vote carries.
Thank you very much, Ms. Thornton. The executive session, Dr. Mackey, do you have any public or legal information to share?
There is none this month.
Dr. Mackey, do you have a report?
I do have a report, sir, and I would ask, with your permission, what the board at this point would like to do. So our report this morning is on, because it's Arts and Education Month, we have a presentation by Dr. Melissa Shields about how we're doing some really unique things with arts and education. However, we have arts and education currently going on upstairs with an ORF band, and if you would like for me to delay that to next month, I will let us go ahead and move forward if you'd like to go up and hear the ORF band.
I'll let you decide, Dr. Mackey.
I think you'd like to hear them instead of the report, and then we'll come back with that report next month, and that concludes my report.
Thank you very much. The next elementary secondary education meeting of the Alabama State Board of Education will be held on Thursday, April 13, 2023 at 10 a.m. in the Gordon Persons Building. The work session will follow immediately the board meeting in room P103. Is there a motion to adjourn? Second? Second. Thank you. The board will be adjourned. We will now go upstairs and be entertained by this group, and then we will reconvene at.
So if you want to convene first, we can, or you can go straight to lunch and we can come back at 1.
We'll go straight to lunch and come back at 1.
Perfect. Okay, hurry upstairs, Dave Starr.